Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast, the essential podcast for fathers navigating the complex but rewarding journey of raising daughters. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I'm thrilled to bring you honest conversations with dads and daughters, sharing heartfelt stories, actionable advice, and real daughter perspectives that will help you be the best girl dad you can be. Hannah Croce, welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast.
Thank you. So excited.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you. So Hannah is the girlfriend of one of my husband's best friends. And the first time that I met her, I was telling her about Girl Dad, and I saw your eyes instantly light up. You were like, I have the best dad. And you were so cute talking about him. So I'm really excited to get you on the podcast and hear some of those stories about what makes your dad so amazing and about your relationships. And I think a great way to start would just be for you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and your relationship with your dad.
Yeah. Happy to. So I'm 27 years old. I'm originally from New Hampshire, actually, pretty far away from California. I grew up there, was born and raised. I went to school in Boston. I went to Northeastern University. And from there, I did a co-op program, which got me into the field of finance. And from there, found a job here in LA, which was a crazy move for me to make, and not something I'd ever really planned to do. I mean, like, especially with finance, you would expect to go to New York. And so I made the decision. My parents were super supportive. Obviously, they were sad that I was going to be moving so far away, but, we knew that we would make it work. And actually, my dad has a lot of family out here that I got close to, extended family. So it was a good opportunity for that. And yeah, I moved here about 4 years ago, been at the same job ever since, and have really kind of made LA home so far. And obviously, I met Danny like a year ago, which has made it even more so home, which has been really nice. Um, but yeah, it's something that I've reflected on as I was thinking about this too, is kind of like how my relationship with my dad evolved when I moved here, because it went from Boston is only an hour outside of New Hampshire. So I was seeing my dad all the time. I was seeing my parents all the time. And now you have to be really intentional about your time, right? And calling them and talking to them on the phone. And it's something that, like, our time when we talk to each other is so much more meaningful, I think, than it used to be, because it's fewer and farther between. And even though it's only a 3-hour time difference, it still makes a difference, because 7 p.m. for us is 10 p.m. for them. And my dad's probably already asleep at that time. So yeah, I was thinking about the fact that, like, our relationship, I think, has become a lot more intentional because we have to set that time to talk to each other. Which has been great. And obviously, I mean, I think the fact that my dad is retired now has helped because I can call him whenever. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, I mean, it's similar to a lot of relationships as you get older, even friendships. You really have to be intentional about things and understanding that you're not going to get to see your best friend every day like you did in
Yeah.
college, right?
Yeah.
It's so different as adults, but you're right. The relationship between father and daughter definitely evolves over time. And I think that jump from that college time period to real adulthood is a major change. And yeah, one way that I've stayed close to my dad is definitely communicating a lot, but I'm sure it'll continue to evolve like it has ever since we were little girls. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, but going back to just a little bit more about your dad, how would you describe him? What did he do? Now he's retired, but what was his line of work? And yeah, just if you have a favorite memory with your dad too, it'd be great to hear that.
Yeah. Happy to. I could probably talk for a long time about this, so definitely cut me off, ask questions. But yeah, so my dad is originally from Pennsylvania. He grew up in Philly. He is an engineer, a civil engineer, by degree and by trade. So very smart guy. He was always somebody growing up who just knew everything, for I don't even know how, like, half of the things that he knew. Also a huge history buff, so just knows, again, everything of history related as well. And he met my mom when they were actually working together at the same company. My mom was actually working under him, so scandalous. But anyways,
I
they
know
met.
nothing about that.
Yeah. um, and yeah, they met and they ended up moving to New Hampshire, and kind of separating themselves, I would say, like, from both of their families in a lot of ways. My mom is actually, I don't know if you know this, but my mom is actually Indian. And so her parents are from India. And so my dad really kind of entered a situation in which, like, he was a little bit kind of shunned from my mom's family, which is like beautiful to think about now. I was thinking about this, like, he never faltered. He was just like, I'm marrying you. You're my wife, and we're doing this, and that doesn't matter. And so, yeah, they moved to New Hampshire together, and my dad worked for the Department of New Hampshire for pretty much most of his life, and which it was kind of nice because working for a government job, my dad actually was around a ton. My mom, I would say, was the one who had kind of like the crazy career where she was working super late hours, and my dad was the one who was at every soccer game, every dance class, drove me to everything. And my mom was still there, but I would say, like, she kind of had the crazier career than my dad did. My dad was more of, like, the stable, constant parent in a lot of ways, which is funny and, like, not something you always see, I would say, where, like, usually the mom is a lot of times that stable parent, and it's funny, like, growing up, I didn't think that that was out of the ordinary because what you know is what you're surrounded by, so it
Right.
wasn't something that I really realized was different until I think I got a little bit older and saw that that was something that was a bit unique, which I think was very impactful to me, like, even now and, being a woman who's career driven and, needing a man who also supports that. And my dad is like, the biggest supporter of my mom. Um, but yeah, and, my relationship with my dad, he's like the kindest, calmest, sometimes quiet. I think other people who don't know him would say that he's very quiet because my mom has like a really big personality and sometimes overshadows that. But like to me, he was just like, the softest, kindest person, the most, like, emotionally stable. I was thinking about this, I think I've maybe seen my dad mad twice in his life.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and, for valid reasons, I would say at those times. Um, but yeah, he was the rock of our family and still is and always was. And I think I have two older brothers, so I am the only girl in the family, and I definitely have a very special relationship with my dad because of that. Um, obviously growing up, I could do no wrong. I was the only daughter, but I think also just it, you have a different relationship with your daughter than you do with your sons, and kind of how you foster your daughter is very different, I think, than like the how you foster your sons as they're growing up. And I think my dad kind of being this more like soft-spoken, kind, and in touch with his emotions in a lot of ways. Not, I didn't see my dad cry a whole lot, but like he never faltered at me crying. He never wavered at like seeing me be very emotional, which I can absolutely be very emotional. And he encouraged that. Like it was important for that, especially as like a young girl in this world. So yeah.
It's amazing. How do you think he kind of treated you versus your brothers growing up? And, you said you were the little girl could do no wrong, but was there a difference that you saw in the way that he kind of parented you or the way that he talked to you?
I think he was a bit softer with me for sure. I think he was much more emotional with me as well. Like, I think, and thinking about how that's affected me now, I think that's so important because to me, I think a man should be emotional and should be capable of having that emotional intelligence to do that. And I think that affected me in ways that I didn't even realize when I was growing up. Um, and now looking back, like, you know, it's funny, like, some of my friends, like, when they're looking for the guy that they wanna be with, they don't want somebody who's emotional at all, whereas, like, I would say I do because that's kind of what I know in some
Mhm.
ways. But it's also important because to, like, understand that and have that, like, realm of being able to, be happy, but also, like, experience sad emotions as well is important in my opinion. I think everybody's opinion, actually, I don't know why I said my opinion. Yeah, I definitely think he was softer with me than he was with my brothers, but still soft with my brothers. Like, I would say my brothers are both very emotional, can be emotional people as well, and can show that emotion too.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're in an emotional state and you go to your dad or a parent in general, it's extremely validating when they can understand your emotions and kind of talk you through it or let you feel your feelings rather than trying to kind of, stop the heightened emotions by just saying like everything's
Yeah,
fine, calm down or,
totally.
so I think
Or being
that that's a
Yeah, or being, like, uncomfortable by it. Like, I think I've experienced adults who have
mhm.
been, like, uncomfortable by emotion in some ways, which when you're a kid just turns you off from acting that way, you
Yes.
know? Whereas I never experienced that with either parents, but, like, thinking about my dad specifically, I feel like the man is, more commonly uncomfortable to emotion, and I never experienced that.
Yeah, and I think that, for the dads out there who do feel uncomfortable with emotional situations,
Yeah.
it is teachable, right? Like that is something
Mhm.
that you can lean into. You can strengthen emotional intelligence with deliberate practice. It's not like you're born this way or not. I think that for people like your dad who it comes naturally to, that's just a strength and a gift, but it's not like something that other dads can't experience if they don't try, but I think just hearing you say how much of an impact it's made on you should be indicative that it is important to pay attention to and to learn this kind of skill.
Totally. Mind you, for the dads listening, my dad was 45 when, he had me. My dad's a little bit older, I will say too. So he definitely had experienced a lot of life, I think, up until that moment. And I'm sure if my dad was 25 when he had me, he might have been a little bit different and kind of still getting his bearings. But I think, yeah, my dad was a bit older when I was born. So I think he had experienced a lot of life. So I don't think that it came naturally in some ways, but I think he had experienced things to get there. So just a little faith for some of the other dads to hear.
Yeah, I know that makes a lot of sense. So, you are a badass. You have a really intense job. And I think that, you mentioned your mom also was a hard worker and maybe you learned some of that female empowerment through her, but also your dad has been really supportive of you and of her. And when you think about kind of your confidence and whether it's related to work or even just who you are as a person, because I think you really do glow with really healthy confidence. How do you think your dad impacted that? Is there ways that he might have said things or done things that helped just kind of establish who you are and who you should be confident of?
Yeah. I think, I think there's, like, 2 things here. I think on one side, I think growing up, my dad was very intentional of how he complimented me is something I've noticed as I've been reflecting. Um, for example, you get a good grade in a class, or when I got into college, my dad was so genuinely happy for me and proud of me and said a lot of things to me like, I can't believe I have a daughter like you and I'm so proud of you and stuff like that, where, you don't have to be complimenting a person all the time. Sometimes it's actually far more meaningful to do it in moments where, you also feel like you deserve it and your dad has complimented you in a way. And my dad was always obviously so genuine about it because he truly felt that way. So I think back on those memories and those moments, and even now my dad will call me randomly and just tell me how proud he is of me. And, you know, it's it's funny because you're just like, "Oh, dad, like, thank you," but, when you, like, step back and you start thinking about things in moments when you're, like, not feeling super confident, those are the things that you reflect on, I would say. Um, and then also in just, like, empowering me to work in a field that's dominated by men, I think, like so my mom is a chemical engineer, and so she works with all men, like, more men, I would say, than I even do. And my dad, even now, I mean, he is like, as I mentioned, just like the biggest supporter of my mom. And that's something that like I really want the dads who are listening this to hear is like how it's not always about what you're saying, but it's a lot of what your actions are and what you're doing, especially when you're growing up as like a young girl. You can't really, I mean, you can have meaningful conversations with your parents, but maybe you don't understand it as much as when you're an adult. And I think my dad was just an example when I think back to it of like supporting my mom, championing my mom to then now supporting me, championing me, and, would occasionally tell me things like, "You don't need a man to be successful, and you're gonna do this all by yourself, and you can achieve this by yourself, and you should. You should have a career. You should be excited about that. Like, those are things I want you to have, and I want you to be excited about as well. Um, and yeah, I think just like also when I like thought about a partner, right? And somebody that I want to be with, it's somebody who is like that because I am in a demanding job and I need somebody who supports that and also supports me when I'm super stressed and can't always handle it on my own. And my dad was always that for my mom. Like, even to this day, my mom still works. And I was literally on the phone with my parents yesterday, and my mom has been having some struggles at work. And my dad, is the first one to defend her, tell her that she deserves better, encourage her to, if she wants to start looking for another job, literally said verbatim, like, the last time you were looking for a job, everybody wanted you. Like, you're going to
Oh,
have that times 10 when you go look for a job now. So I think it's like my dad did a lot through actions and, of course, like told me things like he was proud of me. But also was just an example, I think, of not only what I wanted in a future husband, but also, just having that support, that constant support, and seeing my mom have that support just made me believe I could do it. Like, I can be in a man's world. My mom did it. I can do it, and we can be successful at it. Uh, so yeah,
I love that. And I think also when he was empowering you and saying that you don't necessarily like need a man and you can do it yourself and you can be successful in your career, one thing that he kind of did, on a subconscious level was allow you to really focus on what matters, and I think it almost puts up this shield of, like, the bad guys or the unworthy guys can't get through because you have this confidence and you have this shield of you'll only date a man or be with a man if you really like them and if you really want to be with them. It's not, like, because you have to or because you feel insecure and you need somebody else to validate you. And I think that by kind of just encouraging you to be uniquely yourself and to be inspired by what you're doing, it really led you to finding someone like Danny, who I feel like you guys are such a perfect match for each other. And I'm really excited to continue to see you guys grow and evolve. But I think it really had to do with, or at least one part of it had to do with the fact that your dad made you feel really good about exactly who you are and you were not desperate to find a man and just go for whoever made themselves
totally.
available.
Yeah, no, I think, like, it's funny, when I moved out to LA, I was like, "I don't wanna date anybody." I had a long-term relationship with, like, high school to college, and I was like, "I'm gonna focus on my career. That is what I need to do," and my dad was like, "Absolutely, like, go out there, focus on your career. That's why you moved there, right? Like, you moved out there for this job. You're excited about it. Focus on that." Somehow, 3 years had passed by and I still hadn't I still had only focused on my career. And, things happen when you least expect them to, but yeah, I didn't attract people who were going to detract from me and from my life because of that, and I was never really worried about it, because it was just like, if it's supposed to happen, it's gonna happen, and I think for any dad, like, that's what they want their daughter, to be thinking and to be feeling as well, not that they need to go find someone to take the next steps in their life or to be successful, but that, like, if it's supposed to come to you, it will.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
it's like, get really nerdy about this, but there's the reticular activating system in the brain, which basically like filters out all the distractions and allows you to see what you're focused on. And so the prime example for that is like if you were going to buy a red Tesla and you were really excited about it, you'd see red Teslas everywhere because it's on your mind, right? And so,
That's its fault.
yeah.
I know.
Right. So, when it comes to like women trying to find a man, I think that if they're just so focused on like, oh, I want to get a boyfriend or I need to find a husband or whatever, then they see all these opportunities that aren't actually what they would consider a valid opportunity if they weren't feeling like they had to, find somebody. And when
Yeah.
they're just in their flow state and they're like thriving in their career and they're just loving their life, then that's when the man who's supposed to arrive kind of comes into the picture because it's not this like, oh, he could be the one. Oh, he could be the one. It's like you feel like you've got yourself set up and then the right guy comes along and you're like, oh, you know,
It's time for
yeah,
this. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So I love that. And I love that your dad had a major influence on you when it comes to your career and even relationships in that manner. And speaking of careers, I always like to talk about work life balance because I think a lot of dads struggle with that and feel really guilty about having to spend a lot of time at work and being away from home and maybe this fear of missing out with their children. But I do think that the way that dads can talk about work has a profound impact on the daughter's understanding of this work life balance. And there's a way to like maintain balance in at least in her mind as long as there's this open conversation around it and a lot of other kind of strategies. But I like to hear from the daughters on kind of what that conversation was at home, whether it's with your mom or your dad, and just kind of how you understood work to be, because obviously you were inspired, right? Look at you now. Work wasn't something that was necessarily like daunting or negative. So I would love to hear about how your parents talked about work and maybe how that shaped you today.
Yeah, I would say that growing up, I never had like a nanny. Yes, I would have like babysitters here and there on the weekends or whatever that may be, but it was always my parents. Granted, I have two older brothers too, so they definitely did, their fair share of babysitting me as well. But as I said, like my dad kind of had the more 9 to 5 job. My mom was the one who was kind of working insane hours. She was working in the private sector of engineering. So she really had like the more crazy career, I would say. So my dad was the one who consistently was coming home at 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. every single day. And he was the one who was really like there. And my mom would probably come home closer to like the 7 p.m. time. My mom was still the one who was cooking dinner because my dad is a horrible cook. Um, but my mom would come home at like 7 p.m. She would cook dinner and we would all, I think something that was super important is we all always had dinner together as a family at the kitchen table. There was never, it's funny, like I probably when I lived on my own for the first time was when I started like eating dinner in front of the TV, which now of course I love. But growing up, we were like not allowed to be in front of the TV. It was every single night we were at the dinner table together. We prayed before we ate. Um, Kind of a makeshift prayer, just being thankful basically for what we had. I would say like, just kind of like those affirmations. Um, and then we would eat together and we would talk. We would talk about our days. We would talk about what was going on in the world. Because I'm the youngest, like my older brother is 10 years older than me. It was a lot of like, I think conversations that were a little bit like over my head at that time. But I think that was super good for me actually to like talk to me as a human being, as someone who was going to be an adult, because it influenced, I think, the way that I talk now. And also, I'm able to talk to adults now myself. Um, but yeah, I think my dad was the one who was probably more consistently home, and my mom came home a bit later, or even worked late. And I think for me personally, I never think back to my childhood and think, for example, that like my mom wasn't around as much because someone was always around. So I guess that's the advice I would give is like there should, if you can, always be someone at the soccer games or basketball games or the dance recitals. Like, yes, both are great, but just having one, like I don't think back and think like, oh, my mom wasn't at every soccer game and it was my dad. And also I think, it makes me confident and comfortable in the fact that like I can be a working woman and have kids.
Hmm.
Like, and that's something that I do want to have comfort and confidence in because that's something that's very daunting to kind of tackle as a woman who is, I'm 27, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but like I know it's going to happen. And thinking about that is something that is daunting, like having a career where some nights I am working until 10 p.m. So there is definitely a balance. And I think, so long as, you have a partner or there's somebody who can be there, I think that's what's important is showing up for those soccer games and those events. I say soccer often because I played soccer my whole life and so did my brothers. But um yeah, I think having that balance and always having one parent there, that was important to me.
Makes sense. I think that that's kind of like the action side of it. And I think maybe like the word part of it is thinking about how your dad was always really supportive of your mom. Like imagine the opposite, where he would like tell you, like, "I can't believe mom's working late, like,
Right.
she's always doing this," and kind of putting her down and making it a negative, then you would probably start to see your mom in a more negative lens and feel like, "Yeah, she's never home, like, she's not there for me," but the fact that your dad was so positive and was really supportive of your mom, it probably taught you subconsciously that, work is good, it's great, it's something to be proud of, not something to feel negative towards. So, yeah, I think that it's probably a little bit of a balance between actions and words.
Totally. I'm actually very glad that you said that because, like, even my mom was also the breadwinner for a very, very long time in my family as well. I mean, she worked in the private sector, so just like naturally there's more money there. And my dad was always the first to say, when we went on a trip or something was happening, like, this is because your mom has the job that she does, right? Like, he was always so supportive. And yeah, I genuinely cannot think of a time where my dad was upset that my mom was working late, or was working or was out of town because she had a conference or whatever that may be. Which definitely, as you said, it definitely played a role for sure.
Yeah, and I had the kind of the opposite with my dad working really hard, really late hours, still does, like, I'll get emails from him at, like, 3 AM. I'm like, "Dad, what do you do? Go to bed, please go to bed." But he, like,
Yeah.
loves his job so much, but my mom, she's the one she's a teacher and she works really hard too, but her hours are a lot more flexible because she's off at, 3 PM and then she has summer breaks. And so she's always thanking my dad for working so hard and really highlighting that, like, dad didn't go to bed till whatever late last night and he's, just working so hard. The only time she's like, and it's not even negative, but she's, like, genuinely concerned because she's like, "Is he healthy?" Like,
Yes. You need
but
to sleep.
he's just always done that ever since I was a little girl, like, I don't know, there's some people who I guess can survive on less sleep, and I think my dad is one of those guys. I did not get that trait.
Not I, literally not I.
Not yeah, I've been averaging, like, 9 hours these days. I'm like
I need it. It's crucial to my well-being. If you want me to be a kind person in this office, like, I need sleep.
yeah, I do it selflessly for everyone else around me.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly, but, anyways, so when you think about all these different impacts that your dad has had on you, is there any other ones that come to mind? Any ways that your dad has influenced you in your life, in your personality, in your ethics, anything that he's kinda taught you throughout the years?
Yeah, I mean, kind of I think a big one is actually around, like, forgiveness. So I kind of talked about it a little bit, but so my mom is Indian, and just a little bit of background is, basically, as is the norm in a lot of cultures, right? Your parents want you to marry, especially in the Indian culture, another Indian man. And so my mom was the oldest daughter of her family, and that was the expectation. My grandparents had an arranged marriage. My mom was expected to have an arranged marriage. And my mom, being, you know, the badass that she is, I'm sorry if you have to cut that out. I don't know if we can
No, I
swear, but
said it too.
anyways. Yeah, okay. But being, like, the badass that she is, was like, "No, I'm gonna marry someone for love. I'm not gonna have an arranged marriage." And so when she met my dad, here's this white older man, and my grandparents were like, "Absolutely not." Like, my mom, she had 2 weddings. My grandparents did not attend the American wedding. My mom had an Indian wedding, and my dad went through a lot with that, right? Like, having your in-laws, my dad's parents weren't alive, and having your in-laws who's, like, really, like, the gonna be the grandparents of your children someday, essentially not like you because of the fact that you're white, was just a lot to overcome. And somebody who goes through that, like, I'm 27, hopefully I could say that I would be the same, and I probably would be because I've seen my dad go through it, but my dad has never, like, I've never seen my dad say anything negative about my grandparents, about what he went through. And, like, these people were not kind to him when he was with my mom because I didn't want them to be together. And, my parents have been together for almost 40 years now. And my dad will go see, now it's just my grandma, but, like, he'll get in a car with my mom any day, drive 5 hours to go see her. He has never once said, I dislike them or hate them, whatever it may be. And I, to have that ability to, I don't know if he's forgiven, but to like love my mom so much that you're able to overcome that and experience that like adversity and push forward and like again, actions was one thing. He was doing it. He was driving 5 hours. Words were another. He was never saying anything negative. He was never like, "I hate your grandparents. They're the worst people." We've certainly had conversations as I've been an adult where like, we can psychoanalyze the situation and talk about how it wasn't great. But I think that was important because like as a kid, you don't want to know that your dad hates or think that your dad hates your grandparents, right? And now I know a lot of what he overcame with that and stayed with my mom, obviously. And, couples go through things. But I think as a kid, like seeing him do that, and also for myself now as an adult, like I think I can forgive people, right? Like we can all forgive people. People change, people grow, especially now. My parents have been together for almost 40 years. Like he's, close to my grandmother and was close to my grandpa before he passed and everything. So um I think that was a big lesson, whether it now is forgiveness and at that time was like persistence in some ways or just
Yeah.
yeah.
I think forgiveness is so important because it's one of those things that it really can eat somebody alive for their entire life if it's not addressed. And I think you could do it for the other person. Like you could forgive somebody for them and just to feel like you're helping them out in a way, but really you're doing it for yourself because you're the one who holds that emotion inside of you. And the minute that you actually forgive somebody, you release yourself from all those negative feelings and that ickiness. And so, yeah, I'm a huge fan of forgiveness, and I think it's a really important value to instill on your children because if you don't know how to truly release yourself from somebody who might have wronged you or maybe isn't quote unquote like deserving of your forgiveness, but you don't deserve to not forgive them, if that makes sense. So,
Mhm.
yeah, no, I think that's really important. And I also think that your dad taught you how to be a very kind woman as you are. I don't hear you gossiping. You're like not one of those girls. And I think that what you're describing beyond forgiveness is also just like poise and just being a kind person. Like he could, be spending a lot of time talking about your grandparents in a really negative light and wanting to fill you in on all the juicy gossip and teaching you that like that's an interesting story, or he could be exactly who he is and that's made you exactly who you are in a way. And I think that that's a beautiful thing to see because, gossiping could be super nasty and clearly he doesn't allow that into his life. So, yeah, that's just kind of like another benefit from that kind of lesson that he taught you.
Yeah. I think one other story to tell too um is and like, for other dads that are listening, like your daughter is going to go through so many phases of life, from when she's a little girl and she can't do any wrong to, I was a difficult teenager in a lot of ways, and I won't deny that that's going to happen. And, I went through like a tough phase, I would say, in high school where I was not super focused on my education and I was not super focused on my classes, which, in some ways I regret, but in other ways, like it made me the person that I am and made me want to be hardworking afterwards. And I actually went away I went to community college for my first 2 years post-school, and then I went to my 4-year university, in Boston, and before I went to community college, my dad actually, like, we were in the car, it was just the 2 of us, I forget where I was coming from, but he said to me, because he knew that I was kind of struggling, and he said to me, like, "Hannah, it's okay if you don't wanna go to college. Like, it's okay if this isn't the path that you wanna take. It's okay if you wanna do something else. It's okay if you're passionate about something else. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing just because that's what they're doing." And at the time, I was like, "No, dad, I'm going to college. Like, that's what I'm doing. Like, that's what I wanna do. I just haven't applied myself enough, and, like, I'll be successful." And, of course, he knew that, and he believed that, but he wanted me to know that because I would say, my mom was like, "You're going to college. Like, that's what you're doing. That is what's happening." And as she should. And my brothers both went to college, obviously. And so they were telling me, "You're going to college as well." But my dad wanted me to have one person in my corner in case that's not what I wanted to do. And looking back, I'm like, that was just like the nicest thing he could have done for me at that time to just, especially my dad being like, "I'm in your corner if nobody else is. If this is like not your path and you need to figure something else out, like I'll be here for you. It's going to be okay. I'll talk to your mom. It's going to be okay." And I think that just, being there for people when, they're out, they're down on their luck, or, something is happening, like, not just for your family and the people that you love, but your friends and a stranger and somebody you see struggling. Like, I feel like I have a ton of empathy for people, and I can, like, feel that sometimes even when it's a stranger. And I think it's moments like that that kind of develop that level of empathy in some
Yeah,
ways.
absolutely. I think there's also something so powerful for young girls just knowing that their dad has their back. It's like this safety net that feels so good that I think creates more confident women going forward, even though it's, you know, there are lessons to be learned when you make mistakes. Like your dad doesn't necessarily always have to solve your problems per se, but just knowing that he has your back means everything to us girls. And I think it's the same thing like in my relationship with Max, my now husband, knowing he has my back means everything to me. And I think maybe it's this like masculine and feminine dynamic, but I do think it's a beautiful feeling to feel like your dad truly has your back. So again, for all the dads out there, I think the more you can make that clear through words and action, it will make your daughter feel just at ease, especially for the girls who tend to struggle more with anxiety, as Hannah and we've chatted about.
We've been there. We are there. We exist
Yes.
there.
The hypochondriacs. Yeah, so I think that there is something really beautiful about that. So, were there any fun traditions or passions or activities that you did with your dad as a kid or as an adult that you want to share?
As a kid, something that was super fun that we did every year is we had, like, a father-daughter dance for, and my dad always, even to this day, talks about it. We had so much fun. We would dance literally all night. I think another thing too, my dad loves music, and my dad's a little bit older, as I mentioned. He's in his 70s now. So he grew up, and now, like, I think because of that, like, I grew up listening to 60s and 70s music, and I love it. Like, that is what I'm listening to on a daily basis. That's probably what I was just listening to while I was working. So there's a lot of music like Debbie Gibson and Donna Summer that me and my dad literally used to have the CDs, and just every car ride, because my dad used to drive me to school every day, we would put it in and just jam out to Debbie Gibson. So it's like I love going and listening to her music now because it's such a memory of when I was like, you know, 10 to 15 when my dad and I were listening to that. Yeah. I don't know, maybe something else will
No,
come to me, but those are, like, the immediate things I can think of.
I think music is a great way that fathers and daughters bond. I've heard it from a lot of the daughters. It's like one of the first things that comes to mind is the car rides, which is so interesting. I think it has a huge impact because it's one of those situations where you could be in the car and have like net zero impact to the relationship. Like if you're just zoned out or if you're on your phone, which obviously you shouldn't be doing if you're in the car. But
Yeah.
if you're just like thinking about work or you're letting your daughter be on her phone or whatever, it can just be maybe not necessarily a negative, but definitely not a positive. But if you make it this like holy space where when you guys are in the car together, you're bonding, it can have profound impacts on the relationship because it compounds over time. And I think music is a great way to kind of bond together. And yeah, I mean, I have even
Totally.
a similar story as you. I was studying abroad in Australia, so obviously I was missing my whole family, but um, my roommates and I were all talking about our dads, which was just cute. And then we decided to make a playlist called the Dad Playlist, and it was all of our dad's favorite songs. So we would add a bunch of ones that came to mind for us. And when we would get ready to go out, we would pregame and like listen to the dad playlist, and yeah, we were just kind of like in our element thinking of our family, and it was really special. But yeah, it came
Mhm.
from all those moments, honestly, in the car too. It's like usually when we would
Yeah.
listen to music together. So
Yeah, I also think, like, going and getting breakfast together, like, we have a lot of diners in New Hampshire, not enough in LA, so if any dads are, like, planning to open diners, please do.
Dad's Diner would be a
But
cute name. Side note.
that would that would be a cute name.
Okay,
Maybe
yeah.
I'll do it so nobody takes
TM.
Yeah. Yeah, but another big thing was just, like, going to breakfast. When I think back on, like, our rituals, it was always, like it wasn't necessarily doing anything crazy, but just, like, car rides, breakfast, dinner, like, it was always kind of like those more intimate, just the 2 of us. Nothing needed to be happening, like, we didn't need to go on a big trip anywhere. I mean, my dad is, like, a very simple man, like, that's not what he wanted to do. It was just going and talking to each other and catching up, and I think something that, like, I love to do now is, like, pick my dad's brain about his life when he was a kid and, like, go through, his old, yearbooks and, talk to him about that stuff, which, is something I love to do for him, and then he obviously wants to hear everything about my life and things that are going on, and, also being close to, like, the people that I'm close to in my life. Like, I think a huge thing for me was, like, him being close to Danny, like, that was and Danny knew that from the get-go, like, that was my boyfriend, by the way, for all the dads. But that was something that was really important to me, and, every time my dad calls me, like, one of his first questions is, "How's Danny doing?" So, um, yeah, I think, like, rituals now look a little different because 'cause they're over the phone, or me coming home for the holidays, but, yeah, I think they look more like breakfasts and dinners when I'm home that we get to have that, like, special time
Well,
together.
I think that's something that is a common theme on every interview, every discussion that I have with a dad or a daughter. But specifically with the daughters, it's really just the little things that matter the most. Like when it comes to us daughters, we aren't looking for our dads to have these big grand gestures like once a year that just make us feel so special and connected. It's all those micro moments that really add up, and that's what we remember. That's what we cherish, and that's really what we want. We want to be paid attention to. We want to feel connected with our dads. And it just takes those moments in the car or moments at breakfast. Or, like you said, I loved how your family, sat down at dinner together every night. And I think that's so special. And those moments that you had together, those conversations, probably really shaped your relationships with your whole families. That's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like yeah, I think, like, thinking back, like, it was never a grand gesture. I even think, like, something that's funny, so my birthday's on Valentine's Day, and so my dad obviously would always get me something for Valentine's Day and something for my birthday because he was
Oh,
like, "These are separate. We don't make that one." And so now that's obviously my expectation, but it's small things like that too, where it's, that make a difference that I think about now when Valentine's Day rolls around and my parents still send me something for Valentine's Day and my birthday every
oh,
year. So,
I love
yeah.
that. So, as we're wrapping up here, is there one thing that you would like to thank your dad for?
And there's a million things probably. Um, uh, I think just being such a constant rock in my life. Like, there's a million things, like, that he has done for me, specifically showing up for every soccer game, every dance recital, driving me to every single thing that I asked him to, sitting with me when I didn't make a team or being the first person, I called to come get me from a situation, whatever it may be. But I think all of that kind of sums itself up to, like, being a rock, truly. Um, and he's really the rock of our family. And he's the rock in my life, I would say. So yeah, that's probably what
Oh,
I would thank him for.
so sentimental. And then to close out, what advice would you give to dads with daughters out there?
Probably seems really daunting to have a daughter as a dad. That's something that's, like, I feel like people see it. Sorry, there's fire trucks
You're
going
good.
by, but that's LA. Probably what I would say is it doesn't have to be just in words that you're making an impact on your daughter's life. It is through your actions. And as you said, like, it's the little things. It's the things that maybe you don't even notice are happening, but it's like, I think it's just about being a good person and being a good role model for your daughter. And also being supportive of like other women in your life. I think that was a huge, as I said, like with my mom, like that was a huge impact to me, like supporting other women being successful and continuing to like drive that success for them as well alongside them and being supportive to them. So, and those all came to me, like the things that I look back on, they all came through like me watching my dad and seeing how he acted and how he treated my mom and how he treated others. And yes, there were certainly like conversations, but I think my dad was very much like a somebody who kind of set the expectations through actions for me, set the expectations of the person I want to be with through actions and how he treated my mom. So that's probably the advice I would give. Like, it's not just like words are great. I mean, we've all heard this, like, actions speak louder than words. And for me, I really think that was true for my dad.
I think that's an important lesson for everyone. I mean, it really just builds character if you are able to speak through your actions and align the two together and make sure that you're proving that you really do live up to what you say you do. And I think for dads, it's more important than anything. So I love that. And I love all of your advice from today. This has been an amazing episode. I'm sure any dad listening got a ton of value and just loved seeing the way that you light up when you talk about your dad and all the amazing stories. He's clearly a great guy and somebody that you're so lucky to have as a dad.
Yeah. I think he's going to stop when he listens to this episode.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Hannah. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for tuning into Girl Dad, the podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow girl dad. I read every review and truly take your words to heart. To close out, remember, your intentional moments make lasting legacies. See you next week.